Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Different.
Little fun glitches. And how are you, Bill? Good to see you.
Did we introduce me? Hi, I am William J. McKay, professional equity actor. But what happened to our thing? Okay.
And I am John Kenrick, musical theater historian, teacher, lecturer, author. And tonight we have a very special guest with us. Let me tell you a little bit about her. I had the pleasure of teaching her at the New School some years ago, giving my course on musical theater history. Valentina, oh Lord, not only is she a beautiful person physically, she is a lovely lady, but she is one of the great hearts you will ever meet in your life, a class act all the way. Not only is she the CEO of GO Broadway, which is an organization and a website that puts together educators and musical theater students around the world. She is also a producer, not just in any one place. She recently produced Rent in Argentina. She was involved in The Minutes, which had just started performances on Broadway, Steppenwolf's production, when it was forced to shut down because of COVID. And hopefully that will still have a future on Broadway as things reopen. But now she is one of the producers of the upcoming revival of Company, starring Katrina Lenk and Patti LuPone, that everyone is so excited about. I cannot wait to introduce her to you. So let's just do that. Bring that over. And, oops, there we go.
Oh my God.
It's just misbehaving. And there is Valentina. How are you, dear lady?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here today.
Good.
So let me start with this. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
One thing I don't think you know is that I, being a historian, I was fascinated by the history of Argentina. So long before Evita made every Broadway buff a minor expert on one period in Argentinian history, I was reading every book there was on Perón, on that whole period. So I was fascinated. I fell in love with everything about Argentinian culture. Now, when did you first experience theater? Do you remember?
It's very embarrassing, but my dad used to buy me these like bootleg recordings of Broadway shows. That's what we could get. We could get in Argentina. So every year for my birthday, he would give me just recordings of Broadway shows, and I would just sit in my room. And I remember the first time I came to New York, I was just telling people I had seen 30 musicals. I hadn't. I mean, and I guess that's like the beginning of shows and streaming. So that's
not that I have ever seen a bootleg recording of a Broadway show. I have never ever seen a bootleg recording of a Broadway show because it's wrong. But isn't it amazing? Whoever is usually recording it inevitably feels that they have to applaud, so they put the phone down, and then there's clapping, and then of course curtain calls are completely lost because all the people stand up. Again, not that I have ever seen a bootleg recording because I never ever would.
And these were it's so funny. They were just from the top of the balcony, maybe last row, on very bad cameras. But I still loved it. Something about Broadway and the music. I would watch those VHDs and then DVDs like over and over and fell in love with it until I was 15 and I was able to come to New York for the first time.
Sometimes you get a really good person who does an excellent job, and sometimes it's amazing. I mean, again, not that I have ever seen it.
So what was the first Broadway show that you saw when you came to New York?
So in person, real, seen in the theater, it was Beauty and the Beast.
You are young.
1990.
I'm so happy for you.
Was it at the Palace by that point, or at the Lunt-Fontanne? Do you remember?
Yeah,
at the Lunt. It's because it opened at the Palace. I remember. Oh Lord, that was. I actually loved that show, and it looks like there's a big national tour of it being planned, and so that may be coming back to Broadway in the not too distant future.
I saw it on tour too. I saw it in Chicago. So yeah, I love that show.
Well, I'll tell you, I went with my then partner, may he rest happily.
Oh God, he keeps coming up in these things. Okay, go on.
And my best friend, Corey. And the three of us were in the third row at the Palace at the third preview. And when they finished Be Our Guest, we just incited a riot. That just, we were so enthusiastic. And so every time I went back to see the show, I always incited a riot at the end of that song all over again. And my ex Frank looked at me once after one of those renditions of Be Our Guest, and he said, "You enjoy that almost as much as they do," pointing to the folks on stage. And I said, "Because they deserve to hear applause. I love to do that." What made you want to produce? You could have been an actor. You certainly had, you know, the look, the ability, the personality. What led you to producing?
Well, what did you study at
New school?
Yes.
I did a BFA in musical theater and arts management. So I think
that's also where I got my degree, but we were the Actors Studio. Then they switched to over here. Yeah. I'm older. Yes.
I think I just like to see the whole process. I think actors come into a show or into any project once things are already, decisions have been made, and I like just seeing the whole. I just like seeing the page to stage, like the whole road, and what happens. When you read a script for the first time, you think about the director and you put the teams together, and just seeing something come to fruition from the beginning. And then even after it finishes on Broadway, I was very, very lucky with shows like Once to see that show tour, and then tour internationally and still be involved. So I think I like the whole cycle. I think that an actor only gets to see a little piece of the show, and I like to see the whole picture. Yeah.
So you go to the first readings?
Yeah, definitely.
What was the one that impressed you the most? I would love to be at a first reading. For audience members who don't know what we're talking about, when the cast gets together for the very first time, I believe I'm describing this right, it's usually a huge table. Each table has the script on it for that person, and the whole cast gets to experience each other for the first time. In some cases, they don't even know who they're cast with, and they see it for the first time. So which one was the one where you went, oh my God?
The first one, the first reading, I used to put together I worked at Bespoke Theatricals, where we used to put together the readings for shows. So I went to the one for was it Spider-Man, the first show, Claiborne Park, Motown, just so many. Yeah, I loved the one for the audience. It's one of my favorite plays. That one was really good. It's
wait, which one? Oh, the audience with
the audience with Helen Mirren. Yeah, a few years ago.
Wow. All those actors that played all the okay. So that's what I meant. What's it like the first time? That's the one that stuck out in your head as your favorite. Okay, good. I'd like to get stories later on what they talk about.
I've been to some. I'm not going to name them, but there's some where you're like, "What am I doing? Why is this happening?" But did
they actually turn out to be bad? In other words, were they bad at first, and then it turned out to be amazing?
Some never made it to Broadway. You can see in the intermission when you come back, and there's like half the room there. You're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
What happened?
My ultimate surreal moment is when I was working for the Weislers. And we were having a pre-production meeting for Busker Alley, a show by the Sherman Brothers. Tommy Tune was the star. And he walked into a meeting that we had carefully set everything up for. It was going to be a conference. He took one look at the fruit bowl on the table. He pointed at it and said, "There's no kiwi. I am not going to sit here for 2.5 hours if there's no effing kiwi." And he stormed out of the room. And as he was putting his coat on, I stood there and I went, "You didn't prepare for this meeting at all, did you?" And he said, "Oh, shut up." And he walked out.
Tommy Tune did that?
Tommy Tune, because he had not prepared for the meeting. So he pulled an ego moment over kiwi. And he got over that. Otherwise, he was a totally wonderful person to work with. But it was that one moment where he panicked. To me, that was surreal. It's like, I just told off Tommy Tune. Oh, my God, what have I done? My boss, Fran Weisler, loved it. She said, "Sometimes he needs to be put in his place, John." Now, for you, what was the first... did you start producing here in New York or elsewhere?
I started producing in my living room when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I'm one of 6.
Wow.
So I would put together shows in my living room and charge, in Argentine pesos. So
nice.
I don't think you can even probably $1 ticket. So that was my initial producing. And then I produced workshops when I moved to New York. So I started producing workshops for international students. And I didn't know I was a producer at the time. I was working in marketing and press and doing all these things for Broadway shows, hoping I would be a producer one day. And then the pandemic is, I think, when Broadway closed, and I said, okay, what other cities have theaters open? I looked at Argentina, and the theaters were open there. I said, okay, let's produce a show. Let's start bringing titles over there. And that was my first time as a lead producer.
What was the how did they receive Rent down there?
Oh, it was excellent. It was beautiful. I mean, it was very interesting because it was the first time we were doing a Broadway title was being done in streaming. I remember talking to MTI at the beginning of the pandemic and telling them about this idea I had, and they didn't even know how much to charge because no one had done it before. So it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. We rehearsed. It was only 15 rehearsals, so we had to have really, really, really good actors. And I teamed up with a film director, Carlos, who's done over 70 movies in Argentina, because I wanted I knew that there was something else that could be done to streaming, and in order to get people's attention, that the material had to be really, really good. So we did it with him. It was 8 cameras, and
nice.
Really, really great production.
So it was streamed. It was streamed. It was not in a theater.
Just streamed. The second the streaming ended, we had started getting phone calls from theaters saying, okay, can you come to my theater? Can you come to my theater? So we programmed the show for July, and that's when Argentina was going into the winter, and theaters closed again. So that didn't happen, but we're hoping, to bring it back next year. So it's interesting that a show that started in streaming then would go on. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Because now you've established your audience. Did you do it in English or in Spanish?
In Spanish.
And the translation was good. You were happy with it.
Yeah.
It can be very tricky translating a musical into another language.
Tell me about it. I actually worked with a team of waitress when they were translating the show into Spanish. And in Argentina, we don't eat pies, and the show is all about pies, right? We eat torta, tarta, all these other things. So it was a lot of back and forth with Sarah Bareilles, and she finally gave in, and she said, "Okay, you're the experts. Please call them whatever you want to call them. If they're not pies, they're not pies, and it's just fine."
I know that when they translated My Fair Lady into Spanish, you could not do the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plate. So that does not rhyme in Spanish, and also it's not a test for pronunciation. So what they replaced that with was El Río que hay en Madrid. The Rio is here in Madrid. What? But it worked. And I forget in Italian it was even crazier. But
we cut shows too because the audience in Argentina used to shows. I mean, I would say Argentina, I say all of South America. They used to shorter versions of shows. So 19 minutes is like the sweet spot. So for example, with my
19 minutes, 19 minutes.
90.
My show Heathers, the authors did a special version for the Argentinian audience, which is great. It's 90 minutes.
That's what they do in Vegas. They do 90-minute versions. Yes. They've done that with so many shows. Let me share with everyone.
She warned us. She said the dogs are barking. Don't look.
That's okay. We're all animal lovers here.
It happens all the time. Don't let this phase you.
This is a safe place for musical lovers and a safe place for animal lovers.
Very normal.
Here, for those who may not have seen it, is the trailer for the revival of Company. Now, this is with the cast from 2020 when it was ready to go into performances when COVID moved in. Will some of the cast be different, Valentina?
We are replacing a few. Yeah.
Because I know some people have gone on to other things.
I'm sure they want to just crawl under a rock and cry.
There's a lot of shifts.
It happens. Look, how many kings did Hamilton go through? So same thing. But here we go. A little taste of the upcoming Company.
I'd like to propose a toast.
Phone rings, door chimes, in comes Company. No strings, good times, just chumps Company.
I've always wanted to do it. I love the music so much and wanted very much to update it to now.
I wanted to work with Marianne, and she has a vision of it. I admire Marianne so much.
The Olivier goes to
Company.
Patti LuPone for Company.
I think actors are only as good as their directors. And I have been extremely fortunate to work with Marianne Elliott.
So hard to be married.
I've done it 3 or 4 times.
We wanted it to feel contemporary and fun.
Because she's a woman, everybody has an opinion about what she should do.
Then you leave a person dangling sadly outside your door, which it only makes a person gladly want you even more.
Here's to the girls who stay smart, aren't they a guess? Let's hear it for the ladies who lunch. Everybody rise!
Isn't it warm?
It's a really well-loved piece. And even though it's a universal story, it's very specifically written for Manhattan.
I'm feeling better already. Yes. Oh my God.
All right, wait, let me just say this. Let me say this. We have tickets for numerous shows, and they of course got canceled on us, and of course not happy. It's very depressing. But Company was the one where my husband and I went 4 times. We switched. The good news is the first time we were like row 10. I think the second time we were like row 3. The next time we were row 1. So when that one got canceled, I was about ready to jump off my balcony. But I am so happy to say that we are row 1 again, paid for tickets. Thank you very much. And I cannot wait. And the audience needs to know, our audience needs to know, this is a different version of Company. In other words, the lead would normally be male, and this time it is female. And one of the married couples would normally be a straight couple, but they are a gay couple, I believe. Guys, correct?
And the 3 women Bobby was interested in are now the 3 men that this woman has been interested in.
So one of them is a flight attendant, a male flight attendant, I assume, right? Which I was, just in case you're looking to fill a spot. Because, where could I go? Call me. I have missing my thing right now. Just in case you ever need. I'm only about 30 years too old, but makeup will make the difference. No, seriously, we can. This is the one. This is the one that I cannot tell you how psyched we are. And I can assure you probably most of the theater company is waiting for this one. So you should be very proud of yourself because this is a good one.
If everyone, I give talks to a lot of senior groups around the New York metro area, library group. Tomorrow, I'm going to be at Syosset Library on Long Island giving a talk on Zero Mostel. And the one production people keep saying to me, they're going to see The Music Man and they've got to see Company. And those are the 2 they're looking forward to.
We have tickets for The Music Man too, but
Company, yeah.
Yours is the one. Did you produce that too?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh my God.
The lady is busy. She's got to have some time for the husband and the kids. Not to mention GO Broadway. Now with GO Broadway, tell our listeners and viewers a little bit more about that. How did you come up with the idea?
Of course. So when I moved to New York, I was getting, I started getting messages on Facebook and on Instagram saying, "Oh, I'd love to study on Broadway. How do I do this? How can I come to New York and study?" And I would send them links for the different universities. And as an international student, sometimes it's a little expensive to study here, or courses are too long. So I said, okay, there's nothing for Latin American students on Broadway where classes can be translated, where it can be custom made for Latin American students. So I put together a program and I threw it up on Facebook. I was 17 years old at the time. And just to see if people would come, I created an event and people started saying, I'm coming. Where do I pay? And I'm like, I don't have a company. I don't have a business. How do I get this to work? So I started an LLC and got a lawyer and an accountant and just started calling my teachers and saying, okay, are you free this week? Can you come teach a class? And the first year I remember we had 10 students and they were all they're all celebrities from Calle Corrientes. That's like our Broadway, and they loved it. I remember the first time I met them, I was working on Broadway, so I had access to all these things. And the first time they all stood on a Broadway stage, they just started like sobbing and crying. And I said, okay, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep giving people a taste of Broadway. So 10 years later, we've brought over 1,000 students to New York. And during the pandemic, we've done online classes with John has been a part of, and we've taught over 15,000 students from all over Latin America. So I know some will never make it to New York, but at least they get a little taste of what it is like to study with Broadway teachers. So,
And what else do they get out of it?
What they get? Oh, they get a diploma from Manhattan College. They get to perform at the Argentinian consulate. They perform at an off-Broadway theater. They have a lot of fun. I take them backstage to shows, to rehearsals. Every year the program is different because I work on different shows, so I can get them access to different things. So I've had kids fly in Forza Bruta or see Wicked from the orchestra pit and all this really, really fun stuff that if they come as tourists, it would be really, really hard to access.
I will tell you, Billy, last March, at the start of March, my calendar was full. By the beginning of the second week of March, my calendar had disappeared. Everything was canceled, of course. And the first person I heard from was Valentina. And she said, look, I've got this thing called GO Broadway. Would you be willing to teach a course online? Sure. I dealt with internet stuff before, but I'd not thought of teaching. And then doing that with her, which I had some experience with Facebook before that, as some of the groups I worked with started saying, how about Facebook? Yes, I can do that. I can do it. Yeah, thanks to you, I had. So, now.
Which has led us to this.
Oh, God, yes, led us to this too. And once again, my calendar is full. And the thing is, about half of it now is in person, like tomorrow at the library. But close to half of it is still groups that are being very careful this fall. And I can understand that. And I know you, as a mother of two young ones who they can't be vaccinated yet, I'm sure you're very concerned about making sure that they're kept safe. What's
been really nice? It's been interesting. I remember being in some acting classes and having the kids introduce themselves and hearing reading scenes from Colombia with Colombian accent and a Chilean accent and a Mexican, and we counted 14 countries in one class. And that would have not been possible.
The group that we had for my classes, my God, they were all over the place. It was so exciting. And I loved having that kind of international, that international student body. It was great.
Yeah, the kids now are friends and they keep talking to each other. I guess they met on GO Broadway and some of them are coming in February. So it's nice that we're building a community with all of these students.
Oh, yeah. Now, are you aiming to bringing them back to New York in the near future? Is that?
We are, yes. January 31st, we're bringing the next group. And then at the end of this month, we're doing a program in Madrid because Madrid's already open and we had teachers that were scheduled to travel there. So we're doing that, yeah.
Now, what's up ahead for you besides GO Broadway? Are you looking at other shows? You don't have to name any names or anything, but are you now one of those busy producers who's looking at projects actively and getting excited about more new things?
I have two big dreams. I mean, I have a lot of shows that I've licensed and I'm taking to Argentina and Madrid and Spain, and those will probably happen. But there's a movie I love, and I'm not going to say the name, that I have it all in my head, and I want to turn it into a Broadway show. So I'm trying to get the rights for it. And then I also am working on a reality show about my school because it's very interesting how kids over the last 11 years, kids have come out of the closet and GO Broadway. Some kids are here and they don't even want to be performers. They're following their parents' dreams. And some kids, there's just so many stories that I've seen happen that I want to make sure we tell them and we show them and we show people that you can come to New York, and if you work really, really hard, you can be on Broadway. So that will hopefully happen sometime next year. So we're working really hard on it.
Now, for you as a producer, wasn't it just sheer hell keeping your productions together to wait out this endless year and a half?
Yeah, well, Broadway was easier because there's insurance involved. So Broadway, okay, we knew we were close, and then Ticketmaster had to deal with all the drama and the reimbursement. So Broadway was easier. It was not easy, of course, to see friends lose their jobs and get furloughed and have to leave the city. I think that part was really hard.
Yes.
But Argentina was crazy. The adrenaline of producing there, it's insane. Like the night before the streaming of Rent, two actors that are really, really famous down there, and they were supposed to come in and do little cameos. They called me at midnight. We were supposed to record at start taping at 8 in the morning the next day, telling me that they had been close contact with someone. So 6 a.m. the next morning, I had like everyone getting tested, and this was March or April when tests were not available as they are now. And so dealing with COVID, and we actually had understudies not only for the cast but for all of the creative team. So if my choreographer got sick, she had a replacement. If my music director was sick, he had a replacement too. So we had double everything, and I didn't sleep up to that.
I believe it. Now, for company and for other shows, are there contingency plans in place if members of the cast or major crew members are exposed or are diagnosed?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Now
with them, there's a 2-day quarantine if someone's close contact. I mean, the rules change all the time, but I think it's easier now because people are vaccinated and they're getting their third doses. So we're hoping go smooth.
Thank God we're in New York, not Florida.
Right.
Now, how is it in Argentina? Is vaccination the rule of the day? Are people getting vaccinated down there?
It is. It took very long to get vaccines. So not all age groups are vaccinated yet, but people are really.
And is COVID rising down there, or is it?
It's stable now because we're going into the spring, so weather's nicer. Yep. And what's interesting there is that everyone who can get the vaccine, they just run and get it. There's no. I feel like here it's an option. Right down there, it's not an option.
Good. Now, and frankly, I don't know if either of you watched The View. The View is back on now for the season.
Oh, they had a major topic today.
This morning, they went off about all of them were just saying there's no longer time for people to play games with vaccines. Get vaccinated, because the people who are not vaccinated are the ones who are killing the economy, who are getting other people sick, who are endangering young children like yours, because there is no conscionable excuse anymore. Not being vaccinated is anti-human. It's anti-decent. It's just we got to do it. And if there's anyone out there who hasn't done it yet, get the gosh darn vaccine. Good grief. You got them all your life. Every person who would be watching this who has any interest in theater, you've gotten them all your life. You got them in the cradle. You got them. I've had pneumonia vaccines. I've had. I'm scheduled to get the
shingles
vaccine. That's coming up. You know what?
I had the shot, not the shingles.
I don't know if you know this, Valentina. You see this ear? It doesn't work. This ear is purely decorative because when I was 6, I had the mumps, and the mumps were so severe that I had nerve deafness, complete nerve deafness in that ear. 6 months later, they came out with the vaccine for mumps. So I am a big believer in vaccines. I would give anything for them to have had that vaccine out sooner than they did. Broadway will be so much better off if people just got vaccinated. Oh my God. Here in New Jersey, in Newark, the firemen were marching at City Hall yesterday, protesting that the mayor is forcing them to get vaccinated. They're saying, we don't want to be guinea pigs. You're not guinea pigs. 50 million Americans have gotten this thing. Tens of millions of Americans have gotten it. And you're not guinea pigs at this point. Just get the vaccine. What are you hoping in the weeks ahead? Do you think it's going to be rough like it was in London, reopening shows, or do you think we may have a smoother time of it here?
I like to be optimistic. Yeah, I like to be optimistic. I have to be optimistic, and I have to tell people it's safe and it's great, and people have to come back. So yeah, that's what I hope it's going to happen.
I love that on the Steve Colbert Show, when he restarted performances this week, his audience is in masks, and he showed everyone that right at the start of the other night's first episode after Labor Day. And he said, because this is what we've got to do right now, and we will do it. And it just makes sense. I will be thrilled to see shows in a mask. It beats the hell out of not seeing a show. Before we go into current events, I would like to ask you a list of questions. This was used for many years on The Actors Studio by James Lipton. It was used by a French talk show host before that, and it was based on a questionnaire created by no less than Marcel Proust. So And because you are multilingual, Valentina, you may choose whichever language you want for the word questions. The first one is, what is your favorite word?
Ay, te quiero. It's something that you can't translate it into English. It's between I like you and I love you. It's right in the middle. So I think that's my favorite word.
What is your least favorite word? It's always tough.
It is a tough one.
Hate.
Okay. What turns you on?
What turns me on? I think sunsets and sun comes up and sun comes right. I just love waking up in the morning and seeing the sun coming through my window. That lights me up and turns me on. Yeah, and then sunsets. Yeah.
What turns you off?
It turns me off. People that are very full of themselves.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, the ocean.
Nice.
Just occurred to me, I have all the negative ones. What sound or noise do you hate?
My kids fighting.
Oh, sometimes that can be fun, though.
Right, it depends. And again, whichever language you prefer, what is your favorite curse word?
La puta madre. And I don't curse, so I hate saying that.
And what does that mean?
Like motherfucker. I can't even.
Yeah, it's the closest thing to it. That's a pretty good translation.
You can feel. I probably did not say this to you.
I like turn red. See, I don't curse. Yeah.
Yes, I went to the actor studio school. I was that thing you watched on TV was what James Lipton would do on Monday nights every 2 weeks for the most part. And trust me, some of the most.
And he had to be in, and he was in the audience. They were required to be.
Yeah, we were required to be there. Although hardly a torture, I can assure you. But yeah, some of the most pristine and calm and nun like people would have to spit out some of the most amazing things. So it was always kind of fun. Is this me? What profession other than your own would you like to have attempted or would like to attempt still?
Oh, I would sell luxury real estate.
Ooh, $1 million listings. I like it. What profession would you definitely not like to do?
Medicine, doctor, anything that has to do with blood or dealing. Yeah, I can't do that.
I was an EMT. Yeah, it could be gross at times, but also very rewarding. So here's the thing. All right, if you get to heaven or whatever form of that you believe, what is it that you hope will be said to you once you get there?
What do you hope God would say to you?
I'd like to be careful with that because somebody might not,
Welcome.
Oh, believe me, we first want to hope we're getting in. So yes, that's a big one right there.
Yeah. Congratulations, you've made it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, my dear. And please stay with us. We're going to talk a little bit about some of what's going on in theater right now. Everyone in the New York area is so excited at this point because theater is coming back. Already a couple of shows opened this past week. And this upcoming week, we're going on Tuesday, Hamilton, Lion King, Wicked, and Chicago are going to resume performances.
I love bananas and the coconuts too. Oh my God! Yes.
Hey, it sells tickets. It'll still be selling tickets when all of us are statistics.
Yes.
Now,
all three of those will probably run a very, very long time.
And Bill, you wanted to say something about all
Hadestown. So Hadestown, which also opened last week.
Yep.
The star is Andre DeShields. Oh no, actually, he's considered a supporting role because that's what he won a Tony for the show. What I wanted to say about Andre DeShields is that in 1975, now I'm not even sure that was his first show, but in 1975 he was The Wiz, I believe. The Wiz. I would like to point out that is 1975.
Yep.
And this is 2001. Do the math there, and that is 46, I hope, years. 46 years. Can you imagine?
And along the way,
was there anything in between?
Ain't Misbehaving, the Full Monty.
Full Monty, when he does that song about loving a big, what is it? The big butt woman. It's not the lyrics, but the kind of woman that you could put tchotchkes on her butt. Oh my God,
Yes.
I absolutely love that. It's so good.
But remember him in Ain't Misbehaving doing I Dream About a Reefer 5 foot long, a mite immense, but not too strong. And if you ever got to meet him, he is exactly as insanely delicious. He's a remarkable human being. And on top of that, he is an HIV survivor since the early 1980s. He is one of those few people who survived every single twist and turn of that nightmare, and is still not only alive and well, but clearly, in top form. But go ahead, Bill.
And Hadestown, when John and I both, we of course did not attend these things, but if you look online, if you type in Hadestown reopening, so for Hadestown, because Waitress also opened that night, we'll discuss that in a second. But for Hadestown, if you watch, someone was recording in the audience. Of course they shouldn't, but they did, and I'm really glad they did, even though they're not supposed to do that. Never. But they did, and out comes in that particular show, the entire cast comes out right away. In other words, there is no curtain, but they all come out and get into position. And I'm not quite sure, I didn't time it, but I would say it was a good 3 to 5 minutes before the show could go on. The audience stood and applauded, and that is wonderful. I mean, it is, people were that thrilled, because it technically counts as the first show back, even though, of course, Springsteen would be considered the first performance type show, and Passover would be the first
event, yes.
play. But this was the first musical. Then also that night was Waitress, which also opened. That opened with Sarah Bareilles again. It actually didn't. It had already closed even before the pandemic.
Right.
But for whatever reason, I do not know, but it seems to be a smart choice, they reopened. And if you were to watch that, which is also online, you would see the curtain calls for that. I think John has a picture of the curtain calls. There's something I'm going to say in a minute, but the curtain calls also huge applause. And in the show, in the original production of that show, I don't know why I get emotional about this. I did not know him, but I have a story I'm about to say about it. But okay, in the original production, the waitress's husband was played by Nick Cordero. Nick Cordero was a successful actor on Broadway who came down with COVID. And this made the news. He made the news because it went on for such a long time. He suffered, I don't even know how long. It was a very long time, and in fact passed. And I'm going to say something about that in a minute. But for that performance, the opening performance, they decided to acknowledge him, which is lovely. So they all took their bows, and then they asked his wife, Amanda Klutz, who that is. She came out, and this was not. Yes, it was bittersweet, but she was all smiles. And they did a song that he had written, which they had all rehearsed. So they were all well into it. And she sang along with it. I also want to say, and it was lovely, by the way, it's very bittersweet and quite touching. Amanda Klutz will also be, I believe she's still on The Talk. They hired her to be on The Talk, and she's on that regularly, but she's also now going to be on Dancing with the Stars. And she's earned that right because she's on The Talk. So in a sense, the Dance with the Stars could be a little funny. What I wanted to say about Nick Cordero, this is very personal. It is hardly news, but we'll just go with it because we have a little bit of time tonight, is during the pandemic, when I lost my own job for the time being, and I decided that I was going to come back to acting. I am a member of Equity and SAG and all that sort of stuff, but it had been a while, and let's just say that the pictures were, the 8x10s were, a little old. I of course still look the same as I did 20 years ago, but I of course don't. But it was time to decide to get some new pictures done. And what happens with actors do this is they have to pick a photographer, which is particularly difficult during the pandemic because a lot of the photographers were not doing work. They just were understandably being very protective. And there was one that Dennis Kwan, who is in New York and Los Angeles, and for various reasons, I kind of thought I wanted him. And I went through, most photographers have ads, not ads, a portfolio. And John, bring up that picture again. And while I was going through Dennis's, I saw this picture. And I said, oh, he's Nick Cordero's photographer. And I thought, well, that's really kind of cool. And I don't know why that I was drawn to that, but I still hadn't decided whether I was going to do this or not, because I would have to fly to Los Angeles to get my pictures done if I chose Dennis Kwan. So I was in Bloomingdale's. Please don't weep for me, is what you do sometimes between appointments or something like that. And I was in Bloomingdale's and I saw that coat that he's wearing, or a form of it, hanging in someplace in there. And I went, well, that's interesting. And, you know, actors were very superstitious and we're always kind of going, oh, you know, am I being spoken to? And again, Nick Cordero and I were not friends, so please do. He was not speaking to Bill. I'm sure he had other things to be doing in heaven than helping me decide what my photographer would be. But for
we get it, Bill. You're not dear Evan Hansen. We get
it. So I decided that I was going to. I said, maybe that's a sign. And so I decided that I was going to do it, and I actually bought the coat. Believe it or not, because I said, oh, I don't look like Nick Cordero. So I went to Los Angeles with the coat. Now, John, show the picture. And to my surprise, this is now one of my main headshots. Now, of course, I don't look like Nick Cordero, but there we go. And for whatever reason, in my heart of hearts, there's something that just makes me go, oh, it's a Nick Cordero coat. And I think of him. Now, switching topics, tomorrow night, the 10th, which is the night before 9/11, Come From Away. Come From Away will air, just like Hamilton is filmed perfectly. It is the show. When you watch Hamilton on Disney Plus, you are not getting some edited version or an interpretation. It is the version. And I believe Come From Away, I haven't seen it yet, will be exactly that. And that airs tomorrow night on, it was right in front of me, Apple TV Plus.
Mm-hmm. Now, those of you who saw Schmigadoon, that's the same streaming service. Valentina, did you get to see Schmigadoon? I'm curious.
Not yet.
By all means, you want to, because I know you love a lot of the people who are in that show. And I want to say one other thing about Nick Cordero. One of the reasons why his death during the COVID crisis had such an impact on the theater community, aside from the fact that he was wonderfully talented, aside from the fact that everyone who worked with him just loved this guy. He was a big, strong, healthy 30-something guy. He was the picture of health. He played deadly mobsters in various musicals.
That's it. Was his Tony nomination for
Bronx Tale?
Yes. No. Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was in Bronx Tale.
Was for the Woody Allen.
He was also in the Woody Allen musical Bullets Over Broadway. And in each show, he played, the sort of the classic mobster type, and he played it in a. Now, please understand, I'm half Sicilian. I usually loathe the people who play mobsters in movies and television because they overplay it, and it's also, they play them more like they're Italian Archie Bunkers. Not him. He created these three-dimensional characters, and you loved him instead of just hating him. So that's why his death had such a tremendous impact. Much the same as it was with the wonderful Becca Luker, who, although she did not die of COVID, she died during this past year. She is one of Broadway's most beloved leading ladies in the long-running revival of Showboat, the long-running previous revival of The Music Man, so many shows. A Secret Garden.
Sound of Music. Did you say that?
Sound of Music, which she was the Maria, and wonderful in the part, but she succumbed to MS. And it was a horrible thing to see it just destroy that gorgeous, beautiful. Wow, how blessed we are to have health. I don't want us to, drag anything out. I think we've covered everything. Valentina, you are one of the lights of the theater's present and future. We need at least a dozen more like you. And if they turn out to be women, great. Because you know what? Whew. The days when a Flo Ziegfeld or a David Merrick, the big old SOB sitting behind the desk, gets to bully everyone to do things their way, those days are gone. People like you who are taking this new model and running with it, yes. And getting the world involved, you know, here we are. We're excited and supportive of the new plans of inclusion on Broadway. While other people are talking about inclusion, you're being it. You are doing it. So more power to you, my dear. I am so proud of you as someone who has taught you, and so thrilled as someone who gets to also work with you. You are one of the lights. Keep shining.
Thank you. And I love what you said about inclusion, because people always tell me, oh, did you feel weird that you were from a different country on Broadway? And I said, no, that's what makes me special. So embrace that. If what makes you different, I think it's what makes you special. And everyone who's worked with me, they've tried my choco torta, so they've seen me drink mate in the office, and I wear my Argentinian t-shirt with pride, and I have an accent, and I do, and some words I say funny, and I think that's what makes it special. So I'm Valentina from Argentina on Broadway, and I encourage everyone to find what makes them special, and embrace it.
Our nation in recent years has leaders who don't speak the language as well as you do, so don't ever let that. Please, you speak sumptuously.
Yeah.
I wish I spoke any language other than English as well as you speak English. And now, do you speak other languages besides Spanish and English?
Italian and French, yeah.
Beautiful. I can order in those restaurants, and that's about it.
I don't use much. I fight with my mom in Italian, and my dad speaks French, but I think that's really, really, really important to embrace that, and don't let anyone tell you can't do things. I said I wanted, to be a producer by 30, and I did it. And I know my show's closed, and they'll reopen at some point. But you can do it, and surround yourself with people like John and like William that believe in you, and will push you, and will open doors, of course.
I think you have a very good year ahead. I mean, seriously, it's you and the Music Man, you can fight it out, but I have a feeling which will win Best Revival.
You never know in this business. So many things could. Listen, Hugh Jackman could break his leg. Anything could happen.
Oh, no, John, I wasn't implying that Music Man would be the one that would win.
Oh, no. I'm just saying there could be.
I think Company will win.
It could get postponed another year is what I'm saying. And then Company will just sail through. But any show that's got Patti LuPone in it,
I know, don't ignore the lead. I mean, I've heard amazing. She was so great in The Band's Visit. So I'm really excited. And as a gay person, I am really excited about the fact that one of the couples ends up being gay. So,
and also, this is a multiracial cast, right, Valentina?
Also,
here's a show that's doing it. It's not talking about it, doing it, just like you, young lady, are doing it. So thank you so much for being part of this tonight. It has been a pleasure having you here. We want to have you come back in the future and talk about whatever you're going to be working on next.
Love it. I was just thinking to myself, let's do this again. It was so fun. Thank you so much.
So thank you all for tuning in. And next week, Bill and I are going to be doing an episode on 9/11, on the impact that horrible day had on the theater business, and on the amazing theater that has been inspired by 9/11.
Right. This will not be a serious, somber show. This will not. There is some great stuff that's come out of it.
Oh, God, come from away, and so many other things. I'm one of the lucky
people that has gotten work because of it. And
So it's going to be a very interesting show. We look forward to it. Everyone, stay well, stay smart, and whatever you do, keep loving musicals. See you all soon.